So that way you're not like at the bottom of some dark, depressive episode and, can start, flying straight. Now, what do women need to do? Women also bear responsibility in addressing these imbalances. This isn't a thing where men have to do everything again, sort of thing. They need to recognize a man's sacrifice and struggles and reject the entitlement and embracing accountability in relationships. And advocate for fairness in systems that currently disadvantage men. Just like how men advocated for women 100 years ago to have their rights and the ability to vote. Men did that. It's time, women do that too. How do we address this population collapse? The population decline is a symptom of these deeper societal malaises. The economic pressures, young people delay marriage and children more and more due to financial instability. Like, you can't get a solid job until you're, 30 now? What's going on with that shit? And the cultural disconnection, men and women are increasingly alienated from each other, reducing trust and willingness to build families. To address this, we need pro-family policies, affordable housing, parental leave, and tax incentive for families. Restore purpose, promote family and community, and sources of meaning and fulfillment. And this will help repair trust, bridging the gap between men and women through dialogue and these shared efforts. In the face of these challenges, men have to reclaim their agency without falling into despair. We have to reject the victimhood, acknowledge the injustices, but focus on what can be controlled and changed. Lead by example, embody the virtues of strength, fairness, and integrity, even when society itself seems to devalue them totally. And engage constructively. Get out there and advocate for reform. Talk about it. Build supportive communities and seek relationships with women based on shared values. The bigger picture here is that humanity itself is at a crossroads. And it's very easy to feel hopeless when systems and cultural narratives seem to work against men altogether. However, dominance and submission aren't the only answers. The path forward involves acknowledging past mistakes, advocating for fairness, and rebuilding trust between men and women, and not just going back to the old drawing board. My cat knocked something over. It's not going to be easy at all, but change begins with those of us willing to stand for our principles and work towards a vision of relationships and society that honors everyone's humanity. But what do you do about books like these female sex novels that portray these men in there? I can hear people say that, it's even popping up in my head. What about 50 Shades of Grey, right? Women become sexually aroused when dominated by men. And want us to be that way, but then divorce men when they act on this or don't act on this. So women have a cognitive dissonance that must be addressed. But how, without ridicule and being called an evil man, do you address this? Some people out there might ask, why should men try anymore when the world hates them so much, no matter what they do? It seems we're being driven to create a new type of human that is not in line with goodness or light, but instead male slavery of some kind. When men were in charge, did we not care for the whole family, including the woman? When women rule, they don't seem to care about the children or the man, as shown in how easily women divorce and take the male role model out of their life and ridicule the ex-husband for not submitting to her whims and emotions devoid of logic. What is this tension between what women seem to desire in men, dominance, leadership, and confidence, and how societal and cultural shifts have altered those dynamics? What is it about human psychology and modern social systems that propagate this? It's a paradox. How do you move forward from that? What is this paradox of dominance and cognitive dissonance? The sexual and emotional dynamics that I described here, I think, highlight a lot of this tension. The biological attraction to dominance. Many women are just naturally attracted to traits like confidence, assertiveness, and male leadership, because it makes us seem capable, protective, and desirable. So why is there a cultural rejection of male dominance? What's with this cognitive dissonance? What the fuck is going on? Like, these modern cultural narratives, they label male dominance as oppressive and toxic. It creates this contradiction where women feel attracted to certain traits but later reject them when those traits manifest in relationships. Why does this happen? Is it like a misalignment with expectations? It's like women might enjoy dominance in specific contexts, like sexually or during decision making, right? But they feel overwhelmed or resentful if they perceive it as overriding their autonomy, their individuality. And also the societal influence, this feminist rhetoric often discourages traditional male traits, framing them as incompatible with modern relationships, and you shouldn't do it, women. And then the women internalize these messages, leading to this cognitive dissonance, I believe. And men are discouraged from even trying, like they feel alienated, this cultural disdain for their masculinity. Like the term toxic masculinity, it's led many men to feel demonized for exhibiting traditionally male traits. And these legal and social risks, divorce laws, the family court system like we talked about, always seem to disproportionately favor women, making a long-term commitment really risky. The emotional neglect. Men struggle with loneliness, purpose, and mental health, and suicide, and it's dismissed and ignored. I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast recently about this lawyer from Kentucky and a governor from Texas trying to use Ibogaine to help people with PTSD and drug addiction and struggle with these issues. And I hope that they can succeed in legalizing that sort of treatment for people. It's mostly men, but for anybody, a woman, she needs it. But these men are struggling with it the most. I don't know why there's always so much pushback from exploring solutions, like mental health solutions. I hope that changes. So the result of all of this is many men are just opting out of relationships altogether, marriage, even societal participation, just ghosting themselves from the world itself, viewing the system as stacked against them. It seems to be. But what do you do? How do women rule? And how is it different from men? Men historically cared for the family unit, while women today act in self-serving ways. And we should explore that and face it together here. But is it possible that the systems amplified this behavior? That the legal and cultural systems in place incentivize certain behaviors? Like it's brainwashed women, humanity, to end itself. Divorce laws, custody rulings often enable women to make decisions that are self-serving, even if it isn't their intent. What if it's like the lawyer? I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm just trying to look at it from all angles to really figure this thing out. And I've seen not all women act in this way. The unicorn women out there. Some women do prioritize family and partnership. It is a visible, popular trend, I think, is the majority, but I don't think it is universal. But we got to talk about the absence of male role models in families now, and the perception of women as being self-serving, even if it's not true in all cases. Everybody starts using broad brushstrokes, and that contributes to societal instability as well. Poor child outcomes and a declining trust between genders even further. That's why I'm going back and forth so much here. I'm trying to, play devil's advocate as best as I can, even though I am a man and see these things and have experienced these negative things. I want to really figure it out. So how do we address this cognitive dissonance in the women without backlash? It requires a lot of nuance, empathy, and patience. And a focus on shared goals to frame discussions around mutual benefit rather than criticism. For example, we can highlight how strong partnerships and balanced roles benefit children and society as a whole. Like, can we agree on that? I don't know. Leave a comment below. We can get some examples together and not throw accusations at each other. We can try not to generalize as much and share specific relatable examples. And I think a lot of people do that. There's plenty of videos out there of showing like specific examples of things on both sides. And we got to build some trust. How do we get women to engage in a conversation like this constructively? Is there a way to be constructive without the anger and bitterness that is, rightfully there? Peace is hard. Like, making peace is hard. I myself want to try to avoid ridicule and mocking women or blaming them exclusively. because that'll just deepen the divide. And I'd like to try not to overgeneralize, because I see some channels do that. And I get it. I get it. Sometimes I want to fucking overgeneralize and just yell at the world all of these things. But I think we have to apply some real intelligence to this, and think our way out of it. I want to be emotional about it and upset about it, but I know I can't. It alienates potential allies, and it undermines a constructive dialogue altogether. Should men keep trying, or should they keep going their own way on the red pill path? The frustration and hopelessness a lot of men feel is absolutely valid, and I get it. But opting out entirely risks further isolating men and eroding the chance to rebuild balance. We need self-respect and purpose. That's true. And I think, MGTOW stuff does a lot of good in that regard. But I still detect like a bitterness. It's good to strive for a meaningful life regardless of societal perceptions. This builds resilience, self-worth, and self-reliance. But how do we shape a better future? How do we embody that balance of strength, empathy, and leadership? How do we inspire change and redefine what healthy masculinity looks like without resentment? And I think that involves women. The two of us together create a future. We have to reject despair. Withdrawal feels like self-preservation, but it leaves societal narratives unchallenged and unchecked. Nothing changes. The rift just widens and widens. But what can men do to lead constructively in this climate where everybody thinks that we're toxic? If dominance is misunderstood or demonized, how can we lead in ways that are undeniable in their value? Is there a way that we can blend strength and empathy? Show leadership that's firm but also compassionate. Would this counter stereotypes of oppressive masculinity? Can we redefine our roles together? Can we? In partnerships? Discuss and agree on roles that feel mutually fulfilling rather than dictated by societal norms? Is there a way that we can advocate for fairness? Push for legal reforms that address divorce, custody, and family dynamics in ways that balance equity with justice itself? Can we dance on the razor's edge, people? And not be extreme? Is there any group of people out there, that resonate with these things of seeking a middle ground? It's not easy. It's not easy at all. But I think we got to try. So what's a path forward for men and women? I think for men, we need to reject the resentment, the bitterness. While understandable, it comes with self-destructive behavior. And I think it's good to focus on building yourself and leading by example and finding support in reforming these things, like getting organized, advocating for changes to all these systems that we've talked about that disproportionately harm the men, including family courts and the societal perceptions of masculinity. In fostering community, connecting with these other men, like I talked about earlier, who share your values to create a sense of belonging and purpose and work on projects together. And for women, they need to reflect on the consequences of the current dynamic, recognize the importance of male contributions in leadership, reject these narratives that dismiss and devalue men, and advocate for fairness in relationships and the laws and societal expectations. You have to work together as a team again. Humanity's survival and spiritual integrity, the fear of creating a society built on male servitude or transhumanism, I think is something that should be on everybody's minds. But that doesn't mean it's inevitable. To avoid this, we can return to these shared values and embrace these visions of partnership that honor both masculine and feminine contributions and integrate these shadows that we've created. You know, for those of you that aren't familiar with Carl Jung, I recommend looking into his work about the anima and the animus. In the book Aion, A-I-O-N. It's a great book. We have to reject dehumanization and resist systems and ideologies that reduce people to tools and slaves, whether emotionally, economically, or biologically, and foster this balance. Recognize that dominance and submission must be contextual, consensual, and rooted in mutual care to create a brighter future, not solely control, to stop these cycles of resentment in men and women over the course of thousands of years. Like, I'm talking on a grand scale here. It's like we're on a hamster wheel of razor blades of this same old song and fucking dance. Can we stop? The world is pretty hostile towards men right now, but change begins with those who refuse to give up and to lead with integrity and compassion and strength. Men can reclaim a sense of purpose and work towards a healthier, more balanced society like this. Instead of, all of the Andrew Tate shit, I think, if we went towards a world like that again, it would create resentment in women again, and then they would rise up and do all this rebellion again, and then do this shit to men, and then they would rise up and do all this rebellion again towards women, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And I wanted to go back and forth like that, and reiterate a lot of things and think deeply and meditate upon this issue. Sometimes to go forward, you have to go back again and weave a tapestry of understanding. Because I've had conversations with women about this, and they don't have any problems about it, in person, when I know them and they know me and they know my intentions of wanting to heal this rift between the sexes and address these issues with marriage and who is in charge. And what does it mean when your wife makes more money than you but you're happy at your job, but she's not happy with you, and the hypergamy thing. You know, it almost seems like there's a connection between Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art, and his concept of resistance, and why so many people find a partner that doesn't fit them. You know, like, for instance, you know, women, I've heard them say, like, they really like this guy or even love this guy, but there's just something about him that's not attractive, or they don't understand how they could be with someone like that, and then they pick like the wrong man and have kids with that man, and then he ends up being like a really bad guy, and then they have to leave anyway because it becomes like dangerous, or he's like really violent. So there's something about that in there. Like this 50 Shades of Grey thing. Is there a way to address that? Is there a way to have, you know, like, there's been these male enlightenments and these female enlightenments that have taken place independently. Is there a way to have a human enlightenment between the two sexes simultaneously? Like, there was this male enlightenment about science and religion, and then this explosion of technology that was driven by men, and then there was feminism, which was about rights and emotional things and voting and, you know, having the ability to compete with men in a workplace. That was their enlightenment. But is there a way to do it together to where we're not at odds with one another? And it taps into something deeper here too. Like, do we even want to be humans anymore? I mean, I do. That's why everything I said was leaned towards not becoming a transhuman, Neuralinked cyborg person, or God knows what else we could turn ourselves into with CRISPR gene therapy. But is there just like an overwhelming thing in the mainstream of thought that doesn't want to have families anymore, that doesn't want to have women be women and men be men? What is that? What drives that? What is this ambition that drives us to abandon our flesh and bones, our instinct, our DNA? Who's the judge on that? Who's propagated these ideas? Is it a collective effort? Is it an idea that has gained a soul? Is it like some sort of tulpa or egregore that is possessing us. You've seen me do this video review or discussion on the video game Scorn. And I went into a lot of detail about it because I feel like that's a possible transhuman future for humanity. And it terrifies me. Where children are grown in flesh pods on the wall and birthed by taking them off of the wall with a crane into a buzzsaw birthing chamber to cut away the amniotic material. And there are no genders anymore, and all of the women had been wiped out, because why do you need women if you can just grow them on the wall? If you can just grow people on the wall. Technology itself became the mother. And the man became a resentful, bitter being seeking transcendence from their tortured flesh and loneliness. But it seems like the women want to be turned into men. Like everybody is a man now in this scorned universe. Sometimes I think if you don't know exactly what you're afraid of, you don't know what step to take forward in hope, away from the fear, towards something better. It's like I acknowledge the possibility and the despair that this society brings up within even myself, but I know I've got to do something about it. I know we all have to do something about it that makes sense. Not just, making shock value YouTube videos that get you more likes in your whatever, like just the game. Because we've done that game, and we've addressed the things on both sides, but I just haven't been seeing a lot of people willing to meet in the middle. I've been seeing adversaries, been seeing people on both sides of an extreme, arguing for a traditional role or a feminist role, and I'm asking for a third way. I'm seeking a third way that combines our lessons through failure into something that will work for a long time, for thousands of years, not something that will keep collapsing in on itself when we get to certain stages. Let me know your thoughts below in the comments section, and thank you for watching.